Hey guys, welcome back to Ripe Stories. What would you do if a crazy neighbor cut down your fence with a chainsaw to expand their own property? Let's dive right into the story. And the title story starts like this. So, my name is Jake and I live at a residence formerly owned by my parents. It was a good home but nothing extravagant. 2 floors and a backyard that was not exhausting to mow but large enough to host a great barbecue. It was left to me in the inheritance when my father passed away, and I tried to take good care of it as I knew he would have liked for me to do. After all, he put in a lot of meticulous work into its upkeep, including the cedar fence that he measured, carved and sealed every post for. Needless to say, I wanted to respect my parents' legacy, so I did my best to do right by their cherished home. Plus, it was under HOA jurisdiction, and there were certain rules to keep to. Luckily though, the HOA representatives were not maniacs with their requirements, so they could be kept to without much hassle. Well, about 4 years ago, the Morse family vacated the house next door after living there for nearly 40 years. Their kids had long gone off to live with their spouses, and the elderly couple decided to downsize to a place a few towns away. The house stayed vacant for just shy of a year until finally it sold to Lydia Parker, who would become the bane of my existence. Lydia was a special kind of character. I like to refer to her as being 15 fries short of a Happy Meal with a burger full of razor blades and a drink of vomit. This woman had an entitlement complex that would make a spoiled actress roll her eyes. Anything she did not like was lawsuits or threats of lawsuits. Lydia never bothered to introduce herself to me, but she certainly liked to complain that her backyard was not as spacious as mine, and that was extremely unfair. Something about some backyards being breathable while others are relegated to living in a prison cell. It all started with passive-aggressive comments and antics like complaints to the HOA about my too fluffy bushes and my towering shed and the smelly fans. Once I came home to her measuring the length of my lawn grass as she accused me of trying to grow a forest. Sure, it was annoying, but I figured if I did not fan the flames, eventually she would get over her petty backyard envy and move on with life. But boy, was I wrong. I returned one Friday after a week-long work trip and pulled into my driveway. I could not wait to bring my things into the house and lie on the couch for an hour, but when I arrived, something felt off. First, I thought that I was simply too tired from traveling and my eyes were playing tricks on me. The fence that separated my backyard from Lydia's, my father's pride and joy, had a massive gap in it. At least 30 feet of the fence was completely missing, except for hacked pieces that remained as debris around the area. It was almost like some maniac used an axe to chop it up. My blood started to boil when I realized I was not imagining things. Right then, Mrs. Shells, the lovely old lady who lived across the street from my parents since before I was born, was running over. She looked pale and concerned, and I paced back to meet her. I was too rattled to speak and I just questioningly pointed to the fence. "Oh honey, I'm so sorry, I lost your number and I couldn't let you know. That Lydia woman, she outright lost her mind." I came over and tried to stop her, but she yelled at me and told me that she was taking property that belonged to her, while taking down that whole section of the fence. She did it with a chainsaw in broad daylight, in the morning too. It was the noise that got my attention and I was just scared to approach that maniac with a chainsaw in her hands. "I'm so sorry, I wanted to let you know, you know." Still too stunned to speak, I put my hand on Mrs. Shell's shoulder and shook my head, indicating I did not blame her or expected her to do anything about it, but my blood was boiling. My dad's fence, months of work, all gone. Somehow, that was not even the worst part about it. I was so jarred by this side of the fence that at first I did not see what replaced it. Right past the new gap, there were several pink flamingos on the ground and an inflatable pool with a fancy lawn chair with a sunshade on top of it. A few feet away, in my yard. Even worse though, there was bright white spray paint in the grass reading, "New property line." As I approached, I saw Lydia standing by the back of her house in a large brimmed hat with a sungown and a tall glass with a stupid twisty straw sticking out of a dark pink drink. I told Mrs. Shells that I would handle this and assured her that she could go back home. I stepped forward, clenching my fists in anger, but tried to take a deep breath. Lydia detected my presence, turned around, and with a giant grin started walking my way. "About time you got home, and it's fine, but next time wait to be invited to my property, will you?" she said with a smirk of a thief. "You've been gone a while, so I went ahead and made some corrections around here." I could not even stomach looking at her. "What the hell did you do?" I asked, trying to keep a semi-civil tone while suppressing my overwhelming anger. Well, like I said, I made some corrections. You had far too much yard and you never used it all. Trust me, I've been checking. So I just annexed the land. I got far too little and now we have close to even. It's only fair, she said with a tone that mixed self-righteousness with a heap of condescension. This was so wildly nuts that I took a beat before speaking again. Do you think this is a game of Risk or something? You don't just annex people's property. I am contacting the police and the HOA right now. She crossed her arms. Adverse possession. Look it up. And by HOA rules, if the property is not well maintained, it can be taken over. It's in the bylaws, so don't waste your time. You were gone and your yard was left entirely unattended and not maintained. I took it over and made our yards even and improved property values in the neighborhood by taking down that awful ugly fence. And don't go wasting precious time of the boys in blue either. They have real problems to attend to instead of wasting time on your whiny complaints. In the end, it is my property now and it will stay that way. Plus, I could have taken more, but I made our yards even in size, so don't be so ungrateful. Now back it up, mister, you're trespassing. She smiled and chuckled like a proud hyena. I gritted my teeth trying to remain calm, but this woman's insanity was eating me alive. I looked back at the shredded gap in the fence and the spray paint and then back at Lydia. You have some nerve and an overactive imagination. This will be resolved and you're not gonna like how. And with that, I turned and walked back to my house as she babbled on about annexing rules and my ungrateful nature. At home, I took the night to get my thoughts together, but later in the evening, my neighbor on the other side, Kevin Fields, sent me a video that his son Cody took of Lydia chainsawing my fence down. He was far enough away that she would not have noticed him, but the video very clearly showed her and what she was doing. After that, I had a hard time sleeping, especially since I could hear the sloshing around of the inflatable pool and Lydia's far too loud Bluetooth speaker playing beach songs late into the evening. Every time I tried to shut my eyes, all I saw was the video Kevin sent me and the spray-painted words of "New property line" just past where my dad's fence once stood. The next morning, I called the police and left a voicemail for the HOA. An officer showed up about a half hour later, though I got the distinct feeling that he was in no mood to deal with a neighboring property dispute. He took some photos and notes and then informed me that this was a civil matter and the police needed to not be involved. I was floored. What is civil about her destroying my property? She chainsawed my fence to pieces, spray-painted my yard and then flaunted it in my face like she had every right to do so. And I would say that falls under criminal destruction of property. I pleaded. Look, there are no injuries and nothing was stolen from you. I'm no lawyer, but being an obnoxious Karen is not, to the best of my knowledge of the law, a crime. You will need to take this to civil court, he said dismissively while trying to sound understanding. Nothing stolen? She spray-painted my property and informed me that she had annexed it. I'm not a police officer, but I'm pretty sure that taking over someone's property is theft. I shot back. I did not take the look on his face as appreciating me taking a shot at his job, so he came back with, "Perhaps that is, but still, civil court is the way to go. Sorry." And with that, he shrugged and took off. As I walked back to my house, I noticed that Lydia was in her lounge chair watching the whole thing. If I thought she might be concerned at seeing a cop come by, she did not show it. She grinned her infuriatingly cocky grin and sipped her drink. I wanted to scream. Little did I know that me going against her insistence of not involving the cops would actually escalate her insane behavior. It would not take long for me to experience. I woke up the next morning to the sound of hammering. When I looked out my back window, Lydia was on her knees hammering at a piece of wood while a guy with a neck tattoo, her so-called handyman I supposed, stood behind her measuring something. I threw on some clothes and rushed outside. "You're trespassing again." She did not even look at me. "No, actually you're trespassing. I already told you this was my property now and you're on it. Seems like the cop you relied on told you the same thing." "This is my yard," and no, he didn't actually. I shot back. "Was your yard?" She stopped hammering and looking up. "What? Are you so dense yet you haven't figured out how this works yet? You neglected it, so I took it over, and now I'm making more improvements. I still have not heard a thank you." She went back to hammering, while the neck tattoo guy looked over at me questioningly. "Where are the cedar boards from the fence did you chainsaw down?" I think I caught her by surprise when I mentioned the chainsaw, like she did not realize that I knew about it. She looked up again and said, "My cousin needed it for her chicken coop, so she has it now. Those were handmade. My late father measured and cut those to size. He spent months on it." And you not only wrecked them, you gave them away? I was steaming. The guy stepped up behind her but said nothing. I'm not sure if he was trying to look intimidating, but at the moment I did not really care. Oh please, Lydia said. They were garbage. Scrap wood is being repurposed. And that was the final straw. I was not gonna tolerate this before, but now I resolved to push back harder than ever and make her regret her entitled attitude. I turned and walked back to my house, and I then spent the rest of the day digging through every cabinet in the house until I found the fence receipts and the original property survey map. I also dug up the name and number of the landscaping company that did work on my walkway and garden, and finally I found several highly recommended property attorneys in the area. The next day I called in sick to work and spent the morning on the phone. When I spoke to Jay Dawson, a property attorney with over 40 years of experience, I was thrilled to learn that he knew my father, though passively. They had been out of contact for well over a decade, but he was saddened to hear about his passing and furious at how the town Karen had treated one of his most prized legacies. He cleared an opening for me that afternoon and insisted that I come see him at his office. Luckily, it was just a 45-minute drive, so I was able to go in around 2 p.m. and sit down with him. Mr. Dawson was an older gentleman who probably could have retired if not for his loving job and him being a workaholic. Needless to say, he was as sharp as any attorney and he instructed me on what to do. He took pictures of all the information I found and commended me on thinking things through. I even provided him with the video of Lydia sawing down the fence and explained the cops' half-ass reaction to pursuing criminal action, and he assured me that Lydia was clearly in the wrong here, but with how things lined up it would need to be approached carefully and we would need to prove things quickly. In the meantime, he said we would file an emergency injunction to stop that person from causing more harm. Over the next couple days, Dawson contacted and interviewed some neighbors. So it turns out Lydia had made no effort to hide her behavior. In fact, she bragged to many in the area about taking back what the neighborhood owed her, and he then filed the injunction paperwork. The next afternoon, when I got home from work, she marched out of her house and slammed a letter into my chest stating profoundly, "I will see you in court." It turns out she had not even been informed about the injunction yet, but freaked out from a voicemail she got from my attorney. So I took a little chance and answered, "Well, actually, I will see you in court." Her confused look was priceless. "What?" She snapped. "Emergency injunction has already been filed, and the court will be contacting you real soon. Have a great one." Well, this time it was my turn to smirk at her and walk away, but before I did, I caught a clear glimpse of her going pale. I convinced myself that Lydia would now be scared straight, and yet she made no effort at all in terms of the backyard. Actually, she went in the other direction with another insane move. When I was leaving the house to go to work, something caught my eye. That was a new arrival in my front yard. It was a sign that read, "For rent." In slightly smaller text underneath the letters, it read, "Backyard suite available. Call Lydia." I almost choked on my coffee. It was apparently not enough that she trespassed, vandalized, and destroyed the sentimental fence, and now she was trying to rent out my land for profit. I put my stuff in my car and yanked the sign out of the ground and then headed right over to her house, fuming. Before I could even ring the doorbell, Lydia threw open the door and with rage in her eyes yelled, "You're harassing me and touching my property. You touch that sign again and I will report you. You're trying to rent out my property." I shot back. "How do you exist without a functioning brain?" she screeched. "I already told you that it is now my property, so I lease it to whoever and for however much I wish. It is within my rights, and until a judge says otherwise, that will not change." "Don't you understand? You cut down my fence with a chainsaw, you defaced my backyard and claimed it as your own. Taking something because you want to and then claiming you can do whatever you feel like with what you took is not how the law works, Lydia." I shot back and threw the sign to the side as it landed on her front steps. "The so-called fence was a rotting eyesore. I removed it and instantly improved the property. I get more space that I'm entitled to and you get a better view. Everyone wins, so it is insane to me that you would still be complaining about it." She clapped back, clapping her hands together aggressively, as if she was trying to squish an annoying bug by the side of her head. And I think the annoying bug in her case is actually Karen herself, so clearly she is trying to squish herself. Well, you would know a thing or two about insanity. Then I realized that if I got too heated, I would hurt my case against her, so I turned and walked away, as she yelled after me to repeat what I just said while she got her phone to record me. Later that day, Dawson called me with some truly odd news. She is countersuing you on the claims that you built a fence from rotting wood on her property. What in the… My father built that fence ages ago using a certified property survey. I could not believe this ridiculous claim. Of course, she claims the survey is outdated and she has submitted a Google Maps printout with a hand-drawn line, Dawson said. I could feel him roll his eyes through the phone. Look, everyone realizes this is ludicrous, and I've no doubt the judge will too, but it's better that you should be surprised by me telling you now than in front of the judge when this comes up again. At least this way, you're prepared. Well, on the day of the hearing, Lydia showed up wearing a pantsuit, sunglasses, and a thick folder clutched to her chest. I tried not to let it, but at first it unnerved me a bit. The judge did not know the full story, and I was concerned that she would make her nonsense believable. As we sat in the courtroom, the judge, an older woman with pulled back silver hair, asked Lydia about her claim about my property. Lydia proudly stated that she believed the land was invalidly split and that she had evidence showing that she was entitled to an additional 40 feet that overlapped with my property line. Then she pulled out her Google Maps printout. This looks like a print capture from a navigation website, the judge observed with a raised eyebrow. Correct, Your Honor, with the property lines corrected. The smirk on her face led me to believe that she genuinely thought she had a winning argument here. The judge looked straight at her. These lines are drawn in with a pen. Yes, they are very precise. I used a ruler. I'm great at paying attention to detail. She gave me a side eye in her overconfidence. The judge cleared her throat. All right, Mr. Dawson, do you have a response? Dawson stood up. Your Honor, we submitted a certified survey from 15 years ago, which has legal standing. We also got photographs confirming the original cedar fence built along the line in question, landscaping appraisals of jobs that worked around that fence being where it was, signed testimonials from those who witnessed her cutting the fence with a chainsaw, and of course a video of the event. The defendant also made public statements to multiple neighbors about her plan to annex my client's land. And then she even bragged about it. Beyond that, her assistant was an unlicensed, recently released convict. Lastly, we have a formal letter from the HOA refuting every claim she has made. Lydia's work had long faded by this point, and she snapped, "He was not unlicensed. He was just unavailable for testimony." There was an audible chuckle in the courtroom as Lydia whipped her head around to see where it came from. The judge leaned back and picked up her gavel, not wasting any more time. This case is open and shut. I'm granting the plaintiff's injunction immediately. The defendant will remove all structures, personal items, and signage from the plaintiff's property within 48 hours, with failure to comply resulting in charges from the court. The defendant will also repay for the destruction of the original cedar fence, cover the cost of rebuilding a new one with quality materials and landscape repairs, as well as the court fees incurred. She banged the gavel as relief washed over me, but Lydia was not done yet. This is a miscarriage of justice. It is outrageous. I'm a homeowner and I have rights. The judge was not amused. Well, homeowners are within their rights to follow the law. I went to work the next day with a sore heart about the fence, but a delighted soul of poetic justice being served. When I got home, the pool, the lawn chair, and the obnoxious flamingos were gone. Kevin came over to tell me that when the court officers came by in the morning to serve her the ruling formally, Lydia screamed until she lost her voice and then shut herself in the house until it was time to remove everything from my property. The next day when I got home, most of the spray paint on the grass had also been removed, and a week later I was contacted by a professional landscaping company that Dawson found for me to rebuild my fence. New survey plots revealed that not only did I have all of my previous property, but the fence was actually 3 feet into my house's property and it would be built on the property line, shrinking Lydia's yard just that much more. The company soon began working on the fence and made of the same rich cedar that my dad used for the original. The main difference is that this time I had the fence built even taller. I splurged on a material, so it cost Lydia so much money that I heard later she had to take out a second mortgage on her home to cover it. Even better though, it turns out she tried selling the house, but with the toxic situation, no one would touch it until she dropped the price so much that a quiet older couple could afford it. In fact, they are now my great new neighbors, particularly fond of sharing cookies and fresh fruit with their new neighbors, and they love the smell of cedar. And before we end the video, we will read one last story from r/PattyRevenge. It is titled, "Took my roommate's secret snack stash after they borrowed my hoodie, best 9 candy bars ever acquired." So basically, my roommate decided that my favorite hoodie was communal property, stole it and wore it around the house and only begrudgingly returned it when I asked. No apologies either. A few days later I found their hidden snack bunker behind the cereal boxes, chips, cookies, candy bars, the works, and well, I quietly helped myself to one treat every time I wanted the hoodie back and left a polite note naming the exact item. They only noticed when they hit a late-night sugar craving and found half their stash gone. No hoodie, no snacks, fair trade, right? And yes, someone in the comments said that is clearly the hoodie tax and OP collected it. Either way, thank you for watching, I will see you again tomorrow.